This is the podcast overview for week 14. We are into our last chapter of content this week. Next week will be devoted to studying for your last exam in this class. So this week we're covering chapter 12, which is both adversity and happiness, kind of two ends of the spectrum there. So you have chapter 12, and then I've also included article number 43, America, a Toxic Lifestyle, which speaks to our pursuit of not only happiness, but kind of what's gone wrong and why so many people are not necessarily happy where we find ourselves today in society. So here are the chapter objectives. You can click here to get a run through of each of these concepts. Here is the article reading and the lecture slides that go along with the chapter. And then the only video that I have for you this week is called The How of Happiness with Sonia Lyubomirsky. And she is a social psychologist by training, and her research is in the area of happiness. So she's a happiness researcher. I happened to work with Sonia at the University of California, Riverside a long time ago when I was an undergrad, actually, right where you guys are right now. I took my first position as a research assistant in her lab and ran studies on subjective well-being and happiness and dealing with depression. And at that time, she was looking at a lot of mental health issues. And she has since become one of the most prominent happiness researchers around. And she speaks at conferences each year. She does her research cross-culturally, worldwide. And she's just a really awesome person, great insight and quantitative research to back that insight. As a grad student, I also worked with her on some projects in positive psychology. So she's kind of gone off in that avenue in more recent years. But great stuff here. And so this is a video of her giving a talk at a conference. And she kind of goes over the key findings in her research spanning a couple decades now. So I hope that you get a lot out of this. It's really interesting stuff. It might surprise you sort of who's happiest in the world today, what societies, what countries, and why the reasoning is behind happiness. We often chase certain things hoping that they'll fulfill us and make us happy. And a lot of times what we chase is contrary to what the research actually shows will make you happy. So it's worth a watch. And then it will also help with your discussion board posting this week. So you're going to want to integrate in the article and the chapter. So the first question asks about the article. It reports in that article, which was an original scientific paper. This is where it's coming from. But it reports that most Americans would prefer to have more income over more leisure time. Based on your own observation of family and friends, do you agree with this proposition? And then second, be specific in explaining why this may or may not be the case. Is that true? Do most Americans prefer income over leisure? So after you've, kind of stated your own observations, then look to the research and go, well, is this true? Are we on the quest for more money, more money, more money? Do we have the leisure time really that our bodies need? And where does that leave us? And then in question 2, how does the article relate to the video? and I put module 5. Really, I think that was uh, just the week prior, where we talked about America the Rude, where you guys had the video to watch about kind of the trajectory that Americans are on today in civility. We've kind of become a quote unquote rude nation. And we looked at that with aggression. So I believe it was the chapter before last. Last week we were talking about groups, but in chapter 10 we were talking about aggression and just how bad it's gotten today in America, where rioting and inciting violence has become quite common amongst many different groups. People feel that it's their right to go against civility, that they have a right to be aggressive, and maybe they do, but what are the boundaries? What are the guidelines there? What happens when we have a breakdown in people obeying the law, and leading to kind of every man for himself? We talk about like martial law. We're not that far off, where given the current climate in the U.S. today, with sometimes good reason, but nonetheless, people have no respect for the law or rules, nonetheless, whether it be on the highway or whether it be, with more prominent issues. And sometimes people have good reason for that, but to what end? Where does that leave us as a country that needs to be governed by laws and rules in order for things to run smoothly? We need to be a society that cares for one another, right? We talked about pro-social behavior. We've been talking about it a lot in this class. So where does it make room for that, so to speak? So kind of taking together all of that, what are your thoughts on some of that? So I'm asking you to integrate a little bit here from weeks previous to today. And the article talking about, kind of the situation that we find ourselves in, with Americans kind of, coming to a point where it's all about money and gain, and not really thinking about how to relax and live a life where you enjoy sort of the fruits of your labor, I guess you could say. And then in number 3, I want you to use the text chapter as well as the happiness video from Dr. Lubomirski this week in saying, what is happiness to most people? Like, how do most people define happiness? What is it for them? Who are the happiest people in the world, right? Because really her research is cross-cultural. What will you do differently now that you know what the research says about chasing happiness? Have you been on the right track, wrong track? Is there anywhere you need to curb your goals, your behavior, to draw it more in line with what might really bring you happiness? So some reflection there and some introspection to finish out that discussion. And that'll do it for this week, and the last kind of chapter of content that you're going to be getting into. And then next week, we will be going into your last exam, which is not cumulative. It will only cover those chapters since the last exam, which I believe is 2 chapters. Okay, so let me know this week if you have any questions, you need any help, you have any obstacles. I'd be happy to help you.